తీసేయాలా మీరు కంప్యూటర్లోకి కాపీ చేస్తారా పెన్ డ్రైవ్ ఉంచారా ఓకే ఓకే గుడ్ మార్నింగ్ ఆల్ today's actually Dr. Sunil's class. I've exchanged it because during my class I was not well. I've been told that chronic pancreatitis is being covered without doing acute pancreatitis. Acute pancreatitis will be taken by Dr. Jyoti next week. Okay, so I will be talking about chronic pancreatitis. I haven't made a subheading slides, but I'll be covering the definition of chronic pancreatitis, little bit about the etiology, etiopathogenesis, the risk factors, the clinical presentation, the investigations and diagnosis, the management and treatment, little bit about complications, and finally an overview. Okay, so chronic pancreatitis is today's topic. Chronic pancreatitis is a chronic pathological fibroinflammatory state of the pancreas, which is seen in individuals who have a genetic or environmental or other risk factors who develop a persistent pathological response to continuous parenchymal injury or stress. Okay, so this chronic pathological fibroinflammatory state results in progressive, first of all, in pain abdomen, which is the predominant symptom, along with progressive loss of exocrine and endocrine function. Either because of atrophy, which is an atypical response, or because of fibrous tissue formation, which is a typical response. Okay, so atrophy and necrosis is seen in the acinar cells. Fibrous tissue is seen in the extracellular matrix. There are 4 cardinal manifestations. First of all, you have pain abdomen, followed by steatorrhea, which is because of malabsorption and maldigestion due to exocrine, loss of exocrine function. Then you have weight loss, which is another consequence of the malabsorption, maldigestion. Then you have diabetes mellitus, which develops around 8 years after the onset of disease. Epidemiologically, the incidence is around 4 to 14 per 100,000 population. These are Western numbers. The age of presentation is slightly older age, in the latter 50 to 58 year age group, with a male predominance in the ratio of 5:1. The risk factors are consumption of tobacco and alcohol, both of which have a similar contribution to the pathophysiology. So the dose of alcohol intake is 60 to 80 milligrams per day, that is more than 5 drinks per day. Genetic predisposition in the form of presence of SPINK1 gene or CTRC gene or CFTR gene. Metabolic predisposing conditions like hyperparathyroidism, which can result in hypercalcemia or even hypotriglyceridemia. Then presence of any obstructive predisposition, then autoimmune conditions, like if you have a patient with rheumatoid arthritis or Sjogren's syndrome or ulcerative colitis, these are all generally autoimmune conditions. So when you have a patient with an autoimmune condition, if the patient presents with features of chronic pancreatitis, suspect autoimmune pancreatitis. Then you have hereditary conditions, which are for example, PRSS1 mutation, which is inherited through autosomal dominant fashion. So etiology, you have something called the TIGARO system. So T stands for toxic metabolic causes. Then you have idiopathic. Then G is for genetic. A is for acute, severe, or recurrent. Then O for obstructive. Okay. Then I'm sorry, A is autoimmune, R is recurrent. Okay, so toxic metabolic causes include alcohol consumption and smoking, along with certain medications like phenacetin, or also toxins like organotin compounds. Then also hypercalcemia, hypertriglyceridemia. These are the toxic metabolic causes. Then you can have idiopathic causes, which is idiopathic etiology, which is chronic pancreatitis, which is not associated with a genetic predisposition or any gene mutations. So there are 3 types here. One is early chronic pancreatitis, one is late chronic pancreatitis, and one is tropical pancreatitis. Okay. Then you have gene mutations which are caused by Mendelian diseases involving the pancreas. The genes involved are SPINK1, CFTR, and PRSS1. Then you have autoimmune causes. I have told you 2 or 3 examples associated with rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren syndrome. Then the one differentiating factor of autoimmune pancreatitis from the rest of the causes is that these are responsive to steroid therapy. So when you have an autoimmune condition, underlying autoimmune condition, patient presents to you with pancreatitis, there is every chance that once you start the patient on a high dose of steroid and start tapering, the patient's pancreatitis will start to improve. So these conditions can be either isolated or syndromic. Then you have recurrent and severe acute pancreatitis which is associated with necrosis. Necrotizing pancreatitis can also be the first event of pancreatitis, which is very severe. Then you can have vascular diseases, including which cause ischemia, and you can also have post-irradiation damage, especially in patients who are undergoing radiotherapy. Then finally, you have obstructive causes, chronic pancreatitis, which is associated with either anatomical abnormalities or post-surgical or post-traumatic. So conditions are pancreas devisum, sphincter of Oddi disorders, ductal obstruction, and post-traumatic pancreatic duct scars. So those are all the etiological causative factors. We are coming to the pathophysiology now. So this is your normal pancreas. You can see your ducts with your acinar cells here, and these little islands are your islets of Langerhans. Okay, so you have digestive enzymes coming out into the duodenum. Then when you have this is your healthy pancreatic lobule. So these are your acinar cells. These are your quiescent. Quiescent means resting stellate cells. They are inactive at the moment. Okay, so when you have one sentinel event, like one incident of acute severe pancreatitis, so insults such as alcohol or tobacco consumption, you can have your sentinel acute pancreatitis event. Okay, so this will cause proliferation of inflammatory cells like polymorphonuclear cells and macrophages in the vicinity of the pancreatic ducts, and also activation of the stellate cells, both due to inflammatory markers as well as due to oxidative stress. Okay, so your inflammatory cells will cause injury to the ductal acinar cells. Your stellate cells will release factors which promote collagen formation and fibrosis. Okay, so this is the pathophysiology. So this is your first sentinel insult or injury to the pancreatic ductal cells. If the sentinel event is repeated, or if the patient has recurrent acute pancreatitis because of insults such as alcohol and tobacco, then the pancreatic cell undergoes injury in the form of hypoxia, fibrosis, and oxidative cell. Okay, so this after repeated insults turns into chronic pancreatitis. Okay, chronic pancreatitis can then result in ductal obstruction, pancreatic ductal hypertension, resulting in complications like ductal stones, biliary obstruction, venous thrombosis, duodenal obstruction, and also inflammatory masses and pseudocyst formation. Okay, so this is the pathophysiology. So 5 mechanisms have been described. The first is the necrosis fibrosis sequence hypothesis. Necrosis fibrosis meaning that repeated insults in the form of acute pancreatitis, repeated acute pancreatitis events. Usually it takes place because of alcohol consumption, and one thing is alcohol makes the pancreas more susceptible to injury. Meaning that although the first dose of alcohol may have been very high, subsequent alcohol consumption will cause pancreatitis even in lower doses. Okay, so that results in recurrent pancreatitis and resultant chronic pancreatitis. So that's your necrosis fibrosis sequence hypothesis. Then a sentinel acute pancreatitis event, when your first sentinel means the first event. Okay, so when your first event itself is quite severe. Okay, if the patient has necrotizing pancreatitis, very severe pancreatitis, it can then become irreversible and slowly become chronic. Then you have direct metabolic toxic effect in the form of alcohol and tobacco and the drugs which I mentioned. Okay, there can also be oxidative stress due to oxidative injury, free radical injury. There can also be ductal dysfunction because of protein plugs and ductal obstruction. So this is a little simpler version of what I presented in the previous slides. So alcohol and its metabolites like aldehyde will cause, will promote autodigestion of acinar cells, resulting in necrosis of acinar cells. Acinar cell necrosis will result in an inflammatory response, both cellular and humoral. This over time leads to the formation of a chronic inflammatory mass. Chronic inflammatory mass is usually found in the head of pancreas, and this over time of 20 years or more can develop into pancreatic malignancy, pancreatic cancer. Also, pseudocysts can form because of acinar cell necrosis. Another pathophysiological feature is fibrosis because of stellate cell activation. Fibrosis will result in strictures and proximal dilatation of the ducts. Then, because of stricture formation, there is resultant stasis of pancreatic juice. This stasis will result in again stone calculi formation, and this leads to pancreatic hypertension. So this is a pathophysiology. Coming to the clinical features, pain is the most dominant and central clinical feature of pancreatitis. Okay, so apart from pain, you also have exocrine and endocrine dysfunction. But the only presenting feature, the only complaint of clinical complaint of the patient who has chronic pancreatitis is pain. Okay, so pain is usually with every event it is disabling and the most clinically dominant complaint. The location of the pain is epigastric and it can radiate to the back in a belt-like distribution. Multimodal causes, as in many factors predisposed to the development of pain. Pain can be because of pancreatic pathology itself. It can be because of other surrounding visceral pathology. It can also be because of complications. It can also be because of altered nociception in the central and peripheral nervous system. Then you have, as a result of the pain, patient will have decreased intake of food. This results in weight loss, and patient also has steatorrhea. This is unrelated, by the way. This is an exocrine feature. So causes of pain, primary or genuine pancreatic pain can result from ductal obstruction, pancreatic hypertension, active inflammation in the pancreas itself, tissue ischemia, and altered pain perception owing to the cholecystokinin related changes. They can be local nerve damage because of the inflammation resulting in neuropathic pain. They can also be sensitization of the central and peripheral nervous system and increased peripheral drive. All these factors result in direct pancreatic pain, primary pancreatic pain. Then you have secondary pancreatic pain. Okay, so secondary pain can be either because of local complications or remote complications. Okay, so local complications will include your inflammatory pancreatic mass, pseudocysts, small bowel strictures, and much later on adenocarcinoma. Okay, remote complications include obstruction of the bile duct and duodenum, peptic ulcer due to altered blood flow, bacterial overgrowth resulting in intestinal distension and pain, mesenteric ischemia following a episode of acute pancreatitis, strictures in the small bowel, and diabetes, which is a complication of, which is an endocrine complication of chronic pancreatitis, will result in visceral neuropathy, which can also cause pain. Okay, so then you have treatment related pain either as a byproduct of surgery or endoscopy, or as a response to medication that is used in the treatment of pancreatitis. So your pain is over. Now coming to exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. So you have decreased secretion of digestive enzymes and bicarbonate by the pancreas. This results in an inability to maintain normal digestion. Okay, so this exocrine insufficiency can be mild to severe in amplitude. The causes can be either chronic pancreatitis or much later it can be because of pancreatic carcinoma. It can also be as a result of resection of the pancreas. When you resect the pancreas, in some surgeries, part of the duodenum is also resected. Okay? So this can also lead to exocrine pancreatic, exocrine insufficiency. So features of exocrine pancreatic insufficiency are abdominal cramps, bloating sensation and flatulence, steatorrhea because of malabsorption, and malnutrition. Then endocrine insufficiency, your pancreas have both beta cells and alpha cells. Your alpha cells secrete your glucagon and beta cells secrete insulin, right? So because of beta cell insufficiency, beta cell damage, patient has a predisposition to develop diabetes, okay? But this kind of diabetes, patient also has increased risk of developing hypoglycemia. Why? Two causes I can think of. One is your alpha cells are also gone, so there's less availability of glucagon to respond to hypoglycemic episodes. Another thing is because of the pain, the patient will have decreased intake of food. Okay, so when you have a patient with diabetes, patient will likely be on insulin or oral hypoglycemics in some form or the other. Because of reduced intake, the patient will have increased episodes of hypoglycemia. Another thing can be hypoglycemia unawareness. This can be because of autonomic neuropathy. Okay, so median survival in the patient who has developed diabetes after having chronic pancreatitis is 8.7 years after diagnosis. So diagnostic criteria can be either clinical along with radiological or histological. Okay, so diagnosis of chronic pancreatitis involves recurrent bouts of abdominal pain with or without more than threefold increase in the increase in the levels of amylase and lipase, and one or more of the following criteria. Okay, so amylase and lipase don't necessarily have to be elevated, but patient will present with history of recurrent bouts of pancreatitis along with characteristic typical pain. So with or without one or more of the following criteria, one is radiological evidence, which comprises strictures, obstruction, dilatation in any of the side or main branches, pancreatic calcifications seen on CECT, and MRCP, that is magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatography. So other than radiological evidence, you can also take you can also have histological evidence, either through endoscopic resection or through surgical resection of pancreas. So proof of chronic pancreatitis from biopsy samples undertaken by endoscopy or from a surgically resected specimen. So those are the diagnostic criteria. Coming to the individual tests per se, you can do a few tests in order to determine the sufficiency of the pancreatic enzyme secretion as well as malabsorption, maldigestion. Okay, so you have the pancreatic elastase test, qualitative fecal fat test, chymotrypsin activity in the feces, mixed triglyceride breath test. Okay, so the imaging modalities used for diagnosing pancreatitis are computed tomography, CT. Usually CECT is done. Okay, so this is excellent for picking up obstruction and dilatation of pancreatic ducts, but there is a lack of sensitivity in early stages of the disease. Okay, early or mild stages of the disease. Your MRCP, magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatography, has more or less replaced your ERCP. ERCP is your endoscopic mode. Okay, so endoscopic is used more for treatment nowadays, less for diagnosis. It has high sensitivity for picking up strictures and proximal dilatation. The only limitation is that you can miss small parenchymal obstructions or very small calculi. Okay, so other imaging modalities are endoscopic ultrasonography, MRI elastography, T1 mapping MRI, diffusion weighted MRI, pancreatic fluid flow dynamic imaging. So these are your imaging modality. Then you have histopathology. You can see your calcifications here. That's your ductal dilatation. Histopathology image varies depending on the etiology of the pancreatitis and the stage of the chronic pancreatitis. So macroscopic features are firm, irregular, loss of lobulations, dilated and irregular ducts with pseudocyst or inflammatory markers, inflammatory masses seen in the head of the pancreas. Those are your macroscopic features. Histologically, you can have interlobular, intralobular, periductal fibrosis, atrophy of acinar parenchyma, ductal distortion, intraluminal plugs, calcifications, lymphocytic infiltrates, especially in the late stages, and malignant or metaplastic changes seen in late stages. So this is actually your autoimmune pancreatitis. Okay, so your diagnosis is over. Just a word about prevention. Prevention is counsel your patients when when you see a patient who is presenting with chronic pancreatitis, history of episodes of acute pancreatitis in the past. These patients usually will not stop drinking alcohol. Okay, so when you see these patients in your wards, or when you see somebody who knows somebody who has recurrent attacks of pancreatitis, counsel them that the acute pancreatitis is the warning sign. Okay, so they can recover and live a normal life having recovered from acute pancreatitis. But if the patient continues to drink, the patient will have a predisposition of developing increased pain perception, as well as increased attacks of pancreatitis with lesser intake of alcohol. Okay, so please remember this one point for counseling your patients. So avoid toxins like alcohol and smoking. And one thing to note about pancreatitis, chronic pancreatitis, earlier surgical intervention will lead to better outcomes. Okay, so one is it relieves the physical discomfort of pain. It will also prevent later complications like malignancy, okay, and parenchymal changes. So prevention is this. Then in management, you have 4 subheadings. One is pain management, another is relief of the obstruction, another is prevention of complications, and cure of the complications. Okay, so you can do via endoscopy or through surgery. So management of pain is by risk factor modification. Ask the patient to stop consumption of alcohol and tobacco, and also ask the patient to avoid drugs which can potentially precipitate pancreatitis. Then to minimize the pressure in the duct system, you want to do jejunal tube feeding. By jejunal tube feeding, you want to bypass the duodenum altogether. Okay, and then you can give cholecystokinin inhibitors. You can also try proton pump inhibitors. Then analgesics used are paracetamol and also other NSAIDs. As an adjuvant, along with paracetamol and NSAID, you can also use gabapentinoids like pregabalin or gabapentin. Then invasive methods for pain management, you can do endoscopy, you can do extracorporeal shock wave lithotripsy, surgery, celiac ganglion neurolysis, spinal cord stimulation, intrathecal opioid administration. When you have a patient with chronic pancreatitis, patient can also have concurrent anxiety and depression. These can be treated using tricyclic antidepressants, SSRIs and SNRIs, cognitive behavioral therapy, sleep therapy, and anxiolytics. Neuromodulation can be done in the form of acupuncture, 10, that is transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, and direct current stimulation and physiotherapy. Experimental conditions are therapies are underway. The modalities being used are ketamine, clonidine, antipsychotic medication, cannabinoids, nerve growth factor inhibitors, and radiotherapy. So this is about pain management. Then substitution of exocrine and endocrine factors. So maldigestion you want to treat by giving a pancreatic enzyme mix. Okay, so this contains lipase, amylase, and protease. The doses used, different sources will give you different doses. One Nature review article I read said 40,000 to 50,000 units, but Harrison says 80,000 to 100,000 units of pancreatic enzyme replacement. This is given with food with every meal, and usually results in relief of pain and maldigestion. Then diabetes, the treatment should be tailored to prevent hypoglycemia as well as hyperglycemia. So you should counsel the patient to watch out for features of hypoglycemia. Tell them to take adequate intake of nutrition and to check the sugars regularly, and to supplement for hypoglycemia. For hyperglycemia, the patient can be kept either on insulin or on oral hypoglycemic agents in case of mild diabetes. Okay, although it's unusual for patients, these diabetic patients to develop complications of diabetes, If they have a long life, if they live for several years after the diagnosis of chronic pancreatitis, you can ask them to come back for 6 monthly or yearly follow-up in order to monitor for neuropathy, nephropathy, and retinopathy. Then for endoscopy, the indication is intractable abdominal pain, which is not being relieved with medication, strictures of the pancreatic duct, obstruction of the common bile duct, and pancreatic pseudocysts. Okay, so the procedures you can do are endoscopic sphincterotomy, insertion of a stent into the bile duct. So there's something called a fully covered self-expanding stent. And thirdly, if you have a patient with pancreatic pseudocyst, you can also drain that pseudocyst via endoscopic route. Okay, so indication for endoscopic drainage of pancreatic pseudocyst is a size of the pseudocyst greater than 5 centimeters, with no improvement, with no reduction in the size even after 6 to 12 weeks of follow-up. Okay, or symptomatic, causing obstruction, causing severe pain, causing repeated infection. Okay. So these are indications for endoscopy. Then indications for surgery are alleviation of pain, curing or prevention of complications. If necessary, it's better that surgery is carried out earlier in order to prevent further damage to the parenchymal cells and to prevent severe pain syndromes. Okay, so better outcomes have been observed for early surgery. So the two outcomes, the two points of doing a surgery is either to drain the pancreas of any pseudocyst or any collection, and also to decrease the pancreatic ductal pressure, or to resect pancreatic tissue, which is either inflamed or necrosed, or if the patient develops a pancreatic malignancy later on. Okay, so drainage and resection are the 2 points of surgery, pancreatic surgery. So some of the surgeries which are done, these are the names. Some are drainage only, some are resection, and some are duodenum preserving, spleen preserving, auto islet transplantation. So these are the names: Partington-Rochelle operation, Beger operation, Whipple's operation, duodenum and spleen preserving total pancreatectomy with auto islet transplantation. Okay. So your surgery. Complications of pancreatitis, chronic pancreatitis, you can have impaired glucose tolerance with diabetes type 3C developing later on. You can have, because of obstruction, patient can develop jaundice, cholestasis, and biliary cirrhosis. Patient has a chance of 4% chance of developing pancreatic carcinoma if followed up for 20 years after developing chronic pancreatitis. Patient can have gastrointestinal bleeding, either because of peptic ulcer formation, or because of gastritis, or because of pseudocyst eroding into the duodenum, or because of hemosuccus pancreaticus. That's a complication which results in arterial bleeding into the pancreatic duct. Then patient can also have variceal rupture, which is secondary to splenic vein thrombosis. So an overview of the course of chronic pancreatitis. First you have to recognize your at-risk population. So at-risk population will be anybody who with a history of repeated attacks, anybody with a history of alcohol intake greater than 50 to 60 milligrams per day, anybody with smoking history, anyone with a with a family history or a genetic predisposition, or any autoimmune diseases, or history of drug or toxin intake. Okay, so this is your at-risk population. Patient has susceptibilities which you can recognize, that, but the patient at the moment is asymptomatic. Okay, so at-risk population is susceptible to injury, following which the patient can have an acute pancreatitis. Okay, so it can be either a sentinel acute pancreatitis event, which is a first very severe event, or patient can have repeated attacks of the same acute pancreatitis. Okay, so patient continues to be susceptible to recurrence. Okay, with lower intake of alcohol, patient is increasingly susceptible. Okay, so once once it crosses a certain dose of alcohol intake or a certain duration, patient starts to develop features of early chronic pancreatitis. So early chronic pancreatitis is difficult to differentiate from severe acute pancreatitis. Okay, so but if you pick up a case of early pancreatitis, there is every chance that the injury to the pancreas will completely resolve. Okay, so this can take around months from the first event. Okay, so early chronic pancreatitis, if the patient does not stop their intake of alcohol, or if there is continued injury or stress, then the early chronic pancreatitis will convert into established chronic pancreatitis. Okay, so this is when you see the patient with immune dysregulation, acinar dysfunction resulting in exocrine dysfunction, islet dysfunction resulting in endocrine disorders like diabetes, pathological pain, and predisposition to develop metaplasia. Okay, so when the patient is in early chronic pancreatitis, you can pick up and start your therapeutic approaches. So in order to prevent established chronic pancreatitis. So established pancreatitis takes months to years from the start. Okay, so if the injury keeps adding on, if there is no abatement of the injury, then you have end stage chronic pancreatitis. So this is where the patient develops fibrosis, sclerosis, obstruction, dilatation of ducts, okay, pancreatic hypertension, exocrine insufficiency, endocrine insufficiency in the form of diabetes, chronic pain syndrome, and finally pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. Okay, so this is where you can't really do anything for the patient. You can do surgery if it is feasible, but there's not much benefit. So you have to do symptomatic pain management and give supporting treatment in the form of pancreatic enzymes, exocrine enzymes. So this has to be continued for the remainder of the patient's life. So this is an overview of chronic pancreatitis. To summarize, it's a complex condition which requires multifaceted care from a multidisciplinary viewpoint. Okay, so you need a psychiatrist in order to counsel the patient and get the patient off alcohol. You need a surgeon in order to operate in case there is a pancreatic pseudocyst or a malignancy. You'll need a gastroenterologist in order to do endoscopy for symptomatic relief or for relief for stricture. You can also need a physician in case the surgeon says that there is no active intervention. So it requires care from a multidisciplinary viewpoint. The pathophysiology is still under speculation, but several theories have been speculated. Diagnosis is by clinically the predominant feature is pain abdomen. Radiologically, you can do a CCT abdomen, you can do an MRCP, you can do an endoscopic ultrasound, and diffusion weighted MRI. Then histopathologically, you can do either from an endoscopic specimen or from a surgically resected specimen. The treatment is aimed primarily at relief of pain, relief of obstruction and pancreatic hypertension, prevention and treatment of complications. And early surgery has been found to be beneficial in patients with chronic pancreatitis. Okay, so this is the last slide. Actually, chronic pancreatitis and its complications are more of a surgery topic. Acute pancreatitis will be covered by Dr. Jyoti next week. Okay, thank you.